BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Here we thrive, we survive!
Hey there, BRUCAST fans. You know what's up? I know what's up. It's time to talk about this month's giveaway. Yes, we're still doing it, and all you have to do in order to participate is to subscribe and comment. As long as you do those 2 things, you might win this beautiful, sexy, awesome t-shirt at the end of the month. As usual, we're gonna announce the winner of this worldwide giveaway in a live video format at the end of this month. And stay tuned, you might win it. It might be yours, but all you have to do again is subscribe and comment. And then you're going to be running to win this month's giveaway. Our guest today is Jack Kammer. Jack Kammer is a social worker, author, and advocate for addressing the overlooked issue of sexism against men and boys. With years of experience in the social work field, including a consultancy for men's issues, Jack challenges gender norms and advocates for a more balanced understanding of gender inequality. All right, Jack, how are you doing?
Doing very well, Brew. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Of course, thank you so much for being here. So, you say there's a gender inequality? That's a thing? Whoa! Tell me, what? What's happening? I'm being sarcastic, of course. Come on.
Of course. I know. You know, people, I think, have been executed for saying what you just said, that there's gender inequality against men. Oh, my God. You know, sometimes I ask people, what do you think is the most sexist idea of all? And, you know, they'll say various things, like women will say, well, we don't get paid as much as men, you know, something, or sexual harassment is sexist. I believe that the most sexist idea of all, is the idea, the belief that only men are ever sexist and only women are ever harmed by sexism. The truth of the matter is that women too can be and often are sexist, and men too can be and often are harmed by sexism. It's just a plain fact. And talking about sexism only in one direction and getting mad when anybody dares to suggest that men are ever harmed by sexism and women are ever sexist is counterproductive, and it doesn't move the needle that we need to move to get to real gender equality between men and women, boys and girls, so that we can all be happier, work together better, create more love and power between us, so that instead of worrying about who gets how much of that one slice of the pie, we don't have to worry about that one slice of the pie. We don't even have to worry about that one pie. We can get together and build a bakery. And we can make all the pies we want if we work together better.
Could you give examples of the pie? I think it's a little bit abstract for some people.
For the pie? Well, you know, the idea of the zero-sum game. In America, at least, people talking about the pie is sort of a metaphor for, you know, win-lose situations. If I have a slice of pie, or if I have a pie and I'm going to slice it up, who's going to get the bigger piece? It's a way of putting on the table the idea of fairness and balance, and it's often talked about in terms of the zero sum. More for me is less for you, or more for you is less for me. That's the idea that's conveyed by talking about who gets the bigger slice of the pie.
I think
Does that make sense?
yes, it makes sense. But I think the problem when you put that way is that it sounds very competitive, right? And I know for sure that when you have a romantic relationship, at least if you are in competition with your partner, well, that's not something good. You need someone who's on your side. So if your mentality is like who gets the bigger piece of pie all the time, I need to get the bigger piece of the pie all the time, like things won't work out.
Well, actually, I am the one who's not talking about worrying about the pie. I'm the one who's talking about let's create a bakery. There are, however, people who are very small-minded and very competitive and very selfish. And, think back to when you were a kid. Weren't you always told to share?
Yeah.
If you have a toy, you don't just get to have the toy all by yourself. And if your friend comes to you and says, hey, can I play with your toy? A nice thing to do is to say, yeah, sure, you can play with it for a little while, but just, give it back to me in a little bit. Why are you taught as a kid to share? Because it's nice. It makes people like you better. It facilitates cooperation and love, and it just makes life better for everyone. Now, if you have a kid who's very selfish, and no, it's my toy, you can't play with my toy, how much warmth do you feel for that kid? No, I don't think you feel much. I think, though, that one of the bad things that feminism has done, and I think that feminism has done this very much, very powerfully, and very unhelpfully, is to think of everything. And I'm talking about the worst forms of feminism now. There really is no one definition that everybody will agree on. But the current definition of feminism that I hold is the one that we see out there in the world now, in the media now. It's very competitive. It's very much often a put down of men. And I won't deny that men at one time put down women. But, we've sort of gotten over that. And we have gotten to the point where we largely understand and agree that women are as good as men in just about everything. Now, let's talk about stereotypes here. Back in the day, in the 1960s and the 1950s, before women got equality in the male domain of business and careers and science and government, there were lots of stereotypes about women that men held and said out loud to justify why we weren't going to let women into government, weren't going to let them be in corporations at any high level, weren't going to trust them as scientists. It's because, women aren't logical. Women cry too much. Women are silly. Women just want to go shopping. Those are stereotypes, right? You're too young to remember when they were commonly said and often said. But that's what we said. That's what men would say to justify keeping women out of the male domain and keeping women in the female domain. Well, after 60 years, you can't say that anymore because it's stupid and everybody knows it to say, well, women aren't logical. Women can't do math. Women can't be scientists. Craziness. But that's what we used to say. Now let's take a look at the stereotypes about men. Probably the number one negative stereotype about men is that men are violent. Men are violent. Men aren't gentle. Men aren't loving. Men aren't caring. Men don't have any feelings. Men can't communicate. Men can't multitask. and on and on and on and on and on. And I think it's really, instead of getting better with fewer stereotypes about men, it's getting worse. And a lot of men are sort of taking it personally and feeling really demoralized about being male in this milieu, in this time when it's perfectly okay to be sexist toward men. It's actually even considered to be female empowerment in some circles. So what's going on with all of these stereotypes about men these days? Well, I think it's very much like the mirror image of what was going on with stereotypes back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, before feminism became as effective and powerful as it has become. Stereotypes were used by men to keep women out of the male domain. It's very much the same thing now, except stereotypes against men are used to keep men out of the female domain. So what's the female domain, you might be wondering? You want to wonder that? Do you wonder what is the female domain, or do you sort of like know intuitively what the female domain is?
No, tell us. I'm not sure.
Okay. The female domain, well, let's talk about what we know first. Let's establish that first. Remind ourselves of that first.
Okay.
The male domain is the domain of the hierarchy. You know, we think about male power structures as hierarchical. There's a few bosses at the top. And what feminism does is looks at the top of the male power structure and talks about how it's not fair that all of the people running the biggest corporations, not all of them, most of the people running the big corporations, every United States president, most government leaders around the world have been men, and it's just not fair. That's sexist. It's wrong. Well, in America, we have this notion of the Fortune 500. Do you know about the Fortune 500?
Yeah.
Okay. So feminism often talks about the Fortune 500 and looks at the top of the pyramid and says, looks at the Fortune 500 companies and says, 92% of the people in charge of those companies are men. It's not fair. What feminism does not do is look at the bottom of the pyramid and observe that along with the Fortune 500 at the top, we need to be talking about the misfortune 5 million at the bottom, because there are a lot more men who have very little power than have very much power.
Oh, that's not
Okay.
interesting for them. That's not interesting to talk about for them because because they want to attack, right? Like from what I understand, those extremists, like we should not generalize. I think there's a lot of feminists, but the like, what is this phrase? Like few loud minority, as far as I understand, of extremism in every field. Those are the ones that get the most attention. And I know that when it comes to feminists, the few minorities who are extremists are very loud and they like to attack. That's the thing. So what's the benefit of attacking the ones at the bottom? None.
Well, no, they don't want to attack. I don't want them to attack the ones at the bottom. I want them to acknowledge, just observe, just see them and recognize that there are many more men who have very little power than have very much power. I don't want them to attack the men at the bottom. They don't even want to notice the men at the bottom. I want them to say, oh yeah, being male is not always being at the top. Actually, being male is more often being closer to the bottom. Now, the phrase that we use in English, and your English is pretty good. Have you heard the term "the squeaky wheel gets the grease"?
No, I never heard what that means.
So that's the idea in American English. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you have a machine in a factory and it's squeaking, that's the one that's going to get the grease. And in terms of human communication and in democracies, the ones who complain the most are going to get the attention. Now, feminism, and you're right, we should not criticize all feminists. And I did say at the beginning that there is no one definition of feminism. I'm talking about the ones that are currently controlling the discussion in the media and in government. And I don't know if there are a majority of people who call themselves feminists or not. I suspect they're a minority, but the squeaky wheels, a squeaky minority, can get lots of attention if they're fierce and relentless and well paid and well funded and well educated. I think that's the current situation with feminism as it is today. It's not what feminism started out being. It's what a lot of noble organizations become after a while when they grow and they get more and more people on their payrolls. None of the people in those feminist organizations want to say, well, you know what? I think we've pretty much done everything that feminism needed to do because we really aren't stuck at home anymore. We can be astronauts. We can be airline pilots. We're running for president now. We got people in the Senate. Well, let's just say we've pretty much accomplish what we need to accomplish, and let's all go home and give up our jobs and close our organizations. Nobody is going to give up their payroll. Nobody's going to give up their job. So they got to keep saying, and the phrase they often use is, while much progress has been made, there is still so much more to do. They never want to say, yep, we've done it. Let's close up and work on some other important problems. All right, so we're talking now about the female domain. What is the female domain? The male domain is the hierarchy. You can think of it as like an office building, a very tall office building. You can see it from 20 miles away, okay? And you look around and you think, now, this guy Kammer, I saw him on the BRUCAST podcast, and he was talking about the female power structure. There's no female power structure. You look around and you don't see anything. You see the skyscraper. Well, the female's power structure is not vertical. The female power structure is much more lateral. The kind of building that I think best represents the female power structure, while the male power structure is represented by a pyramid or a skyscraper, the female power structure is represented by a conference center or a convention center, which might be only 1 or 2 stories tall. But the floor space inside that structure is like 14 acres. It's wide, not tall. Now, at the top of the male power structure, where all of the Fortune 500 guys are at the top of the male power structure, you can think of maybe a dollar sign. Sometimes I think of it as a lightning bolt. It's a certain kind of power at the top of the male power structure that men have close access to because it's part of the male domain. There is no dollar sign in the convention center. There is no top of the convention center. It's only a 1 or 2 story building. But what there is in the convention center, the female domain, what there is that we have entrusted to women is a big red heart. A big red heart. And it's not at the top, it's at the center of the convention center. And everybody has equal access to it. It's not like in the male power structure where there's the rich guys and then the poor guys, the Miss Fortune 5 million at the bottom. In the female power structure, it's a big red heart. It's at the center. Every woman has access to it. It symbolizes love, relationships, caring, compassion, having your emotions cared about, getting empathy. And anybody who wants to say that that's not worth anything has never been a human being. because those things in the female power structure are some of the most important things for a happy life. And the largest longitudinal study, the longest longitudinal study of what makes us happy as human beings has proven pretty conclusively that the most important thing, not the only thing, because money is important too. There are some good things in the male power structure that everybody needs. We all need to have physical goods. We need to have clothing, food, shelter, cars sometimes, depending on where we live. So there are important things in the male power structure, but some of the most important things in life are in the female power structure. The longest longitudinal study of what makes us happy says that what the most important thing for human happiness is our relationships. And just as men say, well, I'm the man, I got to run the government, there are women who say, well, I'm the mother, and so I should be entrusted with love and relationships and nurturance and parenting. And just as men were not crazy about the idea of having women get equal access to the skyscraper, there are many women who are not crazy about men having equal access to the convention center, the Big Red Heart, and all of the millions of little companies, little corporations that women are at the top of that are all networked together around the Big Red Heart. Now, feminism made a big mistake 50, 60 years ago when it said that the reason men were keeping women out of the male power structure was because we were male chauvinist pigs and we were horrible people and we were selfish and mean and cruel. And oh yes, let's call men oppressors. Men are our oppressors and women are oppressed. It wasn't because men were oppressors or because men were male chauvinist pigs. It's because we had the responsibility to be the providers of money. And so we were entrusted with the mechanisms for making money. It wasn't because we were male chauvinist pigs. We don't have to say women are horrible people either for wanting to keep what they have. They've been entrusted with the care of children, and so they've been entrusted with the care of children, and so they have a claim on the mechanisms of love and relationships and emotions and expressiveness and caring about people's feelings. The problem is that they think they're the only ones who can do it, just as there was a problem that men had that made us think we were the only ones who could, run corporations and governments and businesses and science. Many women think, not because they're evil, but because it's the way we were brought up to think, that women are just sort of more nurturing, more loving, more kind, more caring. And it's equally wrong to regard women as superior to men in the ways in which women have been entrusted as superior. We need to get over that and say this is old-fashioned, it's wrong, and we've shared the male domain with women. Women need to share the female domain with men. And the fact that women are not sharing the female domain with men nearly as well as we shared our domain with women is really causing men and boys a lot of problems, a lot of mental health problems. Where do I belong? What do I do? If I'm not the provider to give me a sense of identity, who am I? What am I good for? There are books now called The End of Men.
What?
The End of Men. The End of Men. Are men even necessary? Is another one. And this is causing boys and young and men a lot of angst. What am I needed for? A researcher in Australia found that the two most common phrases in suicide notes left by men who have killed themselves are, I think I've got these two phrases right. I feel so useless. I feel so worthless. We need to open up new opportunities for men to be worthful and useful and valued and respected and appreciated. And just as it was a big mistake and a big shame for the world to waste women's talents in business, in law, in government, it is a huge shame and a huge waste of male talents to be loving, kind, caring, nurturing people, especially to their kids.
Wow. Beautiful. Jack, I mean, like I have this gut feeling that everything that you said will be taking, like, will be seen as extremely controversial, but it's just common sense in a way, because if you take like evolution, like let's look at evolution, like from evolutionary perspective point of view, that's what men evolved to do, to protect, to chase, bring food home, and the women, they were the ones who stayed at home, nurturing and taking care of the kids. It's just like we as a human species evolved and survived through millions of years, and now for whatever reason, like no, we need to disrupt all the norms. Men, they don't know who they are anymore. Women, they want to get into the skyscrapers, and the thing is, I don't think there's anything wrong with like women in the skyscrapers and men in the convention centers. Like if they want to go there and they find meaning there, I personally think it's okay. What I don't think it's okay is when they, like, there's no acceptance. You know what I mean? Like they start saying,
Well,
"Get out of here," like you don't belong here, because then like you're discriminating. But I don't know where I'm going with that. Does it make sense?
well, absolutely. The movement of women into the male domain has been a good thing, because there are lots of talents that women can bring to that domain. That is the fundamental idea here. What's missing is that the second half of this equalization has not been allowed to occur. It hasn't occurred nearly as much for men to be equal in women's domain as vice versa. And we need to get over that. We need to require women to take a good hard look at the stereotypes they hold about men, just as men had to take a really good hard look at the stereotypes we held about women. And yes, it's going to be controversial, but not really controversial. It's just going to be something that makes selfish people mad, and it's going to make them afraid that they're going to lose their privileges, and they're going to lose their sense of identity. I mean, this might be the most wrong-headed example of the ways in which many women think of themselves as superior to men. It is often said by both men and women, it's just believed in our culture, that women create life. Right? You've heard that?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, but
women are the ones.
But men,
women are the ones who create life.
Yeah.
Well, should I continue, or did you want to say something?
I just want to say, like, yeah, a woman creates life, but man is also part of the process, right? He's also there at some point. That's all I want to say.
To put a little more detail on this, women do not create life.
Oh.
What women do is they incubate life. The womb, the uterus, is not a magical vessel. It's not magical. It's very physical. It's basically a blood-rich muscle. Now, I'm not trying to put women down. I am only trying to keep women from thinking they're superior to men, and maybe I want to bring men up, because what creates life is not the uterus. It's not the woman. What creates life is the zygote, is the sperm and the egg getting together. And when the sperm and the egg get together, that's where the magic happens. After the sperm and the egg get together, it becomes a zygote, and the zygote takes over and creates, that's the generation of life there. The zygote sort of takes over and sends out its own umbilical cord with a placenta on the end and attaches to the inside of the uterus where it finds a supply of blood. It's the zygote that really is the spark. And we need to recognize that an egg without a sperm is pretty much like a sperm without an egg. Neither amounts to much. They really amount to very little without each other. And so women don't create life any more than men do. What we do is we contribute to life equally. And it's difficult for some women to hear that because they've grown up thinking, oh, I create life. I'm a half of an inch below the angels, you know? And men, well, they're kind of sort of way down there, maybe like a half of an inch above the animals, you know? And it's wrong. It's wrong to think of men as a lesser form of life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and so are you thinking about women, Lord? And like I saw the other day. Sorry, I need to bring that up. I just saw this TikTok the other day. Like they were asking this random girl on the street, like, what do you think you're like you're looking like, are you single? She was like, yeah, I'm single. And then asked, are you looking for a boyfriend? If yes, like what would you expect your boyfriend to be or make a year? And she's like started like spitting all of those crazy ideas. He needs to be that tall and that fit and earn that amount of money and have a great car, like super unrealistic, right? Like not a lot of men had those terms. And the guy, the interviewer, was like, yeah, that's great. So what do you have to offer? Like what are your like what do you have to offer? She was like, nothing. I'm just me. I'm just a woman. He gets me. Like, do you work? Can you like do you have like a great lifestyle that you can offer him? Like, no. She in her mind, she was just herself. Just by the fact she was a woman, didn't work, did anything else, she deserved all of that. It's like, okay, that's crazy. You know, like men are capable of having standards as well. And I think some women, they have this angel-like mentality, like you said.
Well, I agree that is a very big problem for lots of young men to be entering the dating scene. I mean, they're getting through puberty and they're getting very interested in girls. And girls are going through puberty and getting very interested in boys. But there is a huge power imbalance there. And I think it really upsets boys. They can't say anything about it because they don't want to be called sexist pigs. And if they were to say anything about it, they would get a lot of mock sympathy. Oh, you poor guys, you poor baby boys. What do you have to complain about, as if you haven't run the world for 4 billion years? You know, that kind of stuff. Instead of being sincere about it and saying, yeah, it really isn't fair, is it, that I sort of think that because I'm a woman, you ought to pay for my date or having a date with me. It would be just so much better if women would say, well, you know what? It made sense when women didn't work for men to pay for dates. But yeah, that's over. And I'm making my own money. So it's really wrong, isn't it, for me to think that you should pay for the date? But not many women think that. Why? Is it because they're horrible? No, it's because they got a good deal and they don't want to give it up. When are they going to give it up? They're going to give it up when men say, and when boys say, yeah, I understand how you think and why you don't want to give it up, but guess what? I ain't doing it. I'm not doing that. I am not going to treat you as better than me and worth more than me, because I don't want to get into a relationship where you think you are better than I am. That is a death certificate from the get-go. I'm not doing that. So if you want to have a real relationship where we really treat each other as equals, and we can talk about having a relationship that works for 20, 30, 40 years, we get old together, we have grandchildren together. If you really want to have a balanced relationship, I'm here to talk to you about that. But I'm not here to talk to you about you being an angel or a queen and me being the donkey, doing the work for you. And how can we blame boys for feeling that this is just not fair the way this is going? And it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be talked about. And it's really good for everybody. It's going to be good for women in the long run to be more egalitarian, more fair-minded. Women want intimacy. They want love. They want relationships. At least they say they do. They want to know what men are feeling. But if a man feels that, it's really not fair that you think I should pay for the date, but he can't say so.
It's not sexy. If you do that, it's not sexy. Like men feeling, men. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, it could very easily be construed as sexy. It very easily could be construed as sexy. Wow, this guy is not like those other guys over there who are ready to kiss my ass for anything I want. This guy knows who he is. He's going to demand fairness. He's not going to let me walk all over him. That's pretty sexy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, it's the squeaky wheels who are screaming and yelling about, not wanting to give up what they've got. I don't think most women are like that, but I do think that modern feminism, powerful feminism, establishment feminism, institutional feminism, I call it big fema, like big, yeah, like big pharma.
Yeah.
Do you know the phrase big pharma?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, big fema.
Yeah, big fema does not want to give anything up because they have donors they need to please. They have donors they need to fire up. Yeah. They have to always be talking about how it's not fair for women and we need to stop this. But it really could be better for everybody. I
know that since Trump got in power in the US, I watched his inauguration speech and he was very clear. How would say DEI? Yeah, it's not a thing anymore. We're colorblind. We only see like how it's called under the term
meritocracy.
Meritocracy, exactly. If you're good at it, we don't care if you're black or white. Yeah, like we're gonna hire you. That's what we want. We want competent people. But we're colorblind. Doesn't matter what's your color. And I can see like both sides of the argument. Like this is good because I mean, if you got the position, it's really because you deserve it. No one just hire you because they were like, oh, poor you. You're a part of a certain minority. We need to hire you. But in the other side, I think like I'm waiting like the two sides, right? In the other side, I can see that how this can open a door for those who are indeed racist to be even more racist. Of course, you don't know if your colleague in the company is racist or not, but this opens that door for them. You know what I mean?
I do. I will say, I don't want to get into politics, but I will say I am not a fan of Donald Trump at all. At all. I agree that DEI lost its way. Let me tell you, well, I have a story about my worst experience with the diversity machine, but it's probably not worth taking time to tell you.
Good. I'm interested now. I'm curious.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's going to take a couple of minutes. So I used to work at a big organization which treated its employees pretty well. We had a nice gymnasium in the basement, and I would go there pretty much every day in the morning and work out. And it was kind of blissful and lovely because it was quiet. It was quiet. If you wanted to listen to a podcast, if you wanted to listen to music, you would have your little tiny device, your iPod, and you would listen through your headphones. Not everybody had to hear what you wanted to hear. Okay, so it was really nice, and everybody respected that. Well, one day I came into the gym, and oh my God, hanging from the ceiling in the corner was a television with a speaker up, and it was broadcasting this horrible American show called The Jerry Springer Show. It was all about fighting and ugliness and contention, and people would actually beat each other up on stage, and they would have these big bouncer guys come and break them up, and the audience would go crazy. They would love it. It was a horrible show, made a lot of racket, a lot of noise, and the bliss of working out was gone. Well, when I mentioned to one of my friends in the gym that I really didn't like this was a Black woman. She said, "Oh, Jack, you just need to be more diverse."
What has that has to do with anything?
Exactly. Exactly. But that's what diversity became. That I had to be different. I had to change my values to allow her values to be triumphant. Yes, I agree that DEI went off the rails. But just yesterday, I think it was, I read that the federal government in the United States has taken down any acknowledgement of some terrific work that some Navajo Indians did during World War II. Do you know about the Navajo code talkers?
Navajo are those American, like the Indians? Is this the
Yes.
correct term?
Yes.
Indians? I don't
Yes.
want to be offensive.
No.
Native Americans, right?
Well, Native Americans
that
is
the-
considered especially politically correct,
Exactly. Okay.
but a lot of Native Americans don't mind being called Indians. As a matter of fact, I was at a panel discussion once where a Native American fellow said, "I don't mind being called Indians. I'm just glad that Columbus wasn't trying to find his way to Turkey."
Otherwise, they'll be called Turkish. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So the Navajo code talkers were a group of Navajo soldiers, Marines. A lot of them were Marines who used their very unusual language, not a language that many people outside of the Navajo reservation really understand very well, but they used their language to communicate in a way that the Japanese could not decipher during World War II. And they were hugely important to the United States succeeding in the Pacific. Basically, the tribute to the Navajo code talkers was sort of a way of acknowledging what's best about America. That we try to tap the talents and skills and abilities of everybody. And the Department of Defense had some exhibits about the Navajo code talkers, about isn't this great? They had some exhibits about some women who, became the Women's Army Corps people, WACs they were called. And the Department of Defense has taken down these acknowledgments of these particular groups of people and how they really helped out with their special talents and abilities. Took that down because it acknowledges the truth that the Navajo code talkers were Native Americans who loved America, wanted to help America, and did help America, but they had to take that down because it's about a minority. I don't get that at all. So look, I do not like Trump at all, but I do think that he's right to take a good hard look at DEI and what it has become, but not to ignore, the people like the Navajo code talkers. So there. Where were we?
We got a little bit sidetracked.
Yeah, we did.
So, Jack, I need to ask you, are you familiar with Jordan Peterson's work? And if yes, what do you think about it?
I know a little bit about it. I don't get excited about it. The vibe just doesn't feel good to me. I don't go out of my way to listen to him. I did listen to one extended interview he had, I think, on a podcast. I didn't resonate with it. I didn't like it at all. I do understand why young men like it. I even understand a little bit why young men, some young men, maybe even many young men, respond well to Andrew Tate, whom I do not particularly like very much. But both Peterson and Tate are basically saying to young men what Kamala Harris failed to say, what the Democrats failed to say during the most recent election, which was, hey, we see you, we like you, we get you, we'd like to understand you more, we're interested in whatever problems you have, what's going on with you. But nobody's doing that. Andrew Tate is at least saying to young men, you're not worthless. You do exist. Jordan Peterson saying pretty much the same thing. Pride in yourself is a good thing. And young men and older men too need to feel some pride. The way I like to say it is that for 60 years, girls and young women have had a pep rally. Do you know the term pep rally?
No, I don't.
Okay, so in sports, before a game, let's say you're in a high school and you're getting ready to play the team across town.
Oh, it's a
in
motivational
basketball.
talk.
Exactly. It's a big rally, a lot of music and cheers, and you just try to raise your team's spirits, make them feel confident and loved and appreciated. For 60 years, that's what we've had for girls and women. You go, girl. You can do it. Don't let anybody tell you you can't win this game. Yeah. Go, go, go. For 60 years, while girls have been hearing, you go, girl, boys have been hearing, boy, don't go there.
No.
Don't go there. We don't want to really hear about what you need, because men have been in control for thousands of years, which is a stupid thing to say to a person who's been around for 12 years. They've never had any experience of being the privileged class, but still, industrial feminism, professional feminism, Big Fema insists that it's only girls and women who need to get any attention or get any funding for the programs that might help them. It's wrong, and it's got to stop.
Yeah. I know that, I don't know why, but I know that a lot of men also resonates with the movie Fight Club. It's a thing. Have you watched it? I was listening to this podcast the other day about masculinity as well, and they mentioned when it comes for coming of age for women, there's thousands of movies, there's thousands of books, that's not something you need to worry about. But when it comes to men, oh, what's happening? I think I activated something, but it doesn't matter. When it comes to men, you're just thrown out there in the world. If you're lucky, you have a dad who kind of shows you the way, but a lot of men don't, and that's it. And they say Fight Club, it's one of those movies that help men a little bit. Would you agree with that?
Well, let's see. I saw a movie called Fight Club, but it seems like it was probably 10 or 15 years ago.
It's
Is that
pretty
right?
old, yeah. I think, pretty old, yeah. I think
Yeah,
30 years. Actually, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's old.
Okay, it's pretty long ago. Was Brad Pitt in it? One of those
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
fellas? Okay. Well, I saw the movie. I was not terribly moved by it. I sort of understood what it was about. I think there are lots of rituals we could have for boys growing into men that don't need to involve pain or hurt or fighting. I mean, fighting is a part of life. Competition is a part of life. There are bad people you need to be prepared to defend yourself against. I get that, but there are uh, so many other things that we could build life rituals around for boys and men.
Could you give like examples or ideas that people could apply in their lives? Because
Well,
Fight Club is fighting, right? So it's
yeah,
not a good one.
yeah. Well, let's see. You know, I have never thought in depth about that because I've never been responsible for coming up with a ritual for boys and young men. But off the top of my head, going with the theme that relationships are hugely important, and the most important relationships of all for men, I think, are their relationships to their kids as fathers. For young boys, they're not going to be fathers at the age of 12 or 13 or 14, but they can be uncles. They can be coaches, of little league teams. You could build rituals around that, introduce boys to the idea of teaching and loving and helping and encouraging younger boys to grow up healthy and happy. That would be one way, one very broad general category of creating rituals for boys growing up into being, not children anymore. What's the difference between a child and an adult? The adult gives more than he takes. A child takes more than he gives. A child takes more than he produces. An adult produces more than he consumes. So in that transition there, 12, 13, 14, 15, helping a young boy see the joy and the beauty and the fun of helping a little kid grow into independence, that could be a very rich and exciting and beautiful rite of passage, a ritual.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. That's like it's crazy because people we don't talk about those things. They are important. Like I have a nephew. I don't know if that's the correct term. Let's say it's a nephew. No, it's not a nephew. I don't know. It's a cousin.
Okay,
It's a cousin. It's a cousin.
Okay, a cousin. Okay.
I have a cousin. He's like way younger than I am. Like, but the thing is, we have so much stuff in common. His name is Luca. Yeah, he's like into video games and to, yeah, mostly video games. That's the most thing we have in common. But we play a lot of video games and we bonded over that. And he always saw me. Oh, and also working in the gaming industry. And he was like, since a young age, oh my God, like you're like the person I want to be when I grow up. And I don't know, just have this bond with this young boy and helping him grow and exchanging ideas. Like I'm not his dad, of course not, far from that. But it felt so good. It feels like I'm part of the tribe. I belong to something, and it's something healthy. I don't know how to describe it. I think it goes more or less in line what you were saying.
Well, I think you've explained it pretty well. You said it made you feel good, and you felt good and alive. You felt positive. You felt like you were doing something good for another person. It
Yeah,
wasn't for you. It wasn't being selfish. You were
yeah,
connecting to something larger than yourself. I mean, what is the meaning of life? Nobody really knows. I mean, you can get religious and think that heaven is the meaning of your life, and it very well might be. I don't know. But, it's a very big question. What's the meaning of life? And it always gets down to something bigger than yourself.
yes,
You gotta connect to something bigger than yourself. If you're only connected to yourself, you're a black hole. You're going nowhere. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Now, look, you just mentioned video games and how important they can be to boys. I used to work for a video game company. And so I got to appreciate the brilliance of game designers. And I would not be surprised if a game designer was to be given the job of coming up with a video game that would be part of the boy to man rituals that we're talking about, that they could develop a really cool game in which an adolescent boy could maybe play the game with a younger boy, maybe the younger boy is a character in the game. I don't know, but I have no doubt, very little doubt, that a very cool video game could be designed around, instead of helping the boy, the adolescent boy, get points for shooting somebody or killing somebody or crashing something or jumping over a frog, he gets points for helping the kid that he's trying to help, helping him grow healthy and smart and strong and make good decisions in his life.
That's a great
And
idea.
you get points for that.
That's a great idea. There's no video game. I don't know any game that is like that. I mean, I know multiplayer games, but they're like very broad, very general. Like you can play with anyone. But yeah, that's fun. So I need to ask now, Jack. I'm sorry. Like you work for a game company?
Yeah, I worked for Microprose Software.
Oh, wow.
They were a designer of mostly flight simulators.
It's a big game. Flight Simulator is a big game. You mean Flight Simulator is like, because there's one game specifically called Flight Simulator. Is that the one?
No, that's by Microsoft.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's sort of a generic civilian planes, if I'm not mistaken. Microprose did F-15 stealth fighter. Before that, I worked for Muse Software. Did you ever hear of Castle Wolfenstein?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I used to work with the fellow who developed that, who designed that back in the day. Yeah, he was really something. And at Microprose, you've heard of the game. No, you've heard of the game Civilization, of course.
Yes.
Okay, well, Sid Meier is the designer of the whole Civilization series. And Sid Meier was one of the co-founders of Microprose. And I didn't work with him a lot, but I knew him and he was a great guy. So yeah, I really appreciate the wizardry, the genius of game design.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's wonderful. That's so cool. You work with Sid Meier's. I feel like we could go on for another hour now, but I need to ask you where people can find you, your website.
Okay, so the website is malefriendlymedia.com. It's all one word, no hyphens, malefriendlymedia.com. I have a contact button there if you want to send me a message. I have a follow button there if you would like me to let you know when I do something, like, appear on a podcast or publish something on Substack or some other blog. So that's where male-friendly media is the basic place.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jack. Do you have any final remarks? Anything else that you'd like to say?
No, it's just been really fun. It's been really fun to talk with you, Brew.
Yeah, it was. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you, Brew. Take care.
Take care. All right, everyone. You know what's up. I know what's up. It's time to talk about this month's giveaway. Subscribe and comment, and you might win this beautiful, sexy, awesome t-shirt. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BRUCAST store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a BRUCAST model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy BRUCAST. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing BRUCAST merch, or watching an episode of the show and send it to us and become part of BRUCAST. We'll feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.